Guys, this video is going to be really short. So the last 2 days, you guys have been working on a real world packet and then just the solving all methods type 3. So today, we're going to do one quick last solving example, and then you're going to take the quiz. And then when you're done with the quiz, you're going to work on a worksheet that we'll go over at the end of class that will lead into the last and final section of the quadratic unit. So the last solving example I want to throw up here is x minus 3 times x minus 1 minus 8 equals 0. At first glance, you might think this is factored. But because of that minus 8 term, this is not in factored form. So unfortunately, you're going to have to get it back into standard form. And then from there, you can decide whether you want to try to refactor it or use the quadratic formula. So if I FOIL this out into standard form, and you get x squared, you'll get negative 1x and then a negative 3x, which will combine to negative 4x, plus 3, bring down my minus 8, and that's going to equal 0. If I combine my like terms, okay. When the a value is 1, I always like to try factoring first. So are there two numbers that will multiply to negative 5 and add to negative 4? Yes, and that would be a negative 5 and a positive 1. So by refactoring that and then setting my new factors equal to 0, I'm going to get x equals positive 5 and x equals negative 1. Whereas in the initial beginning of the problem, you might have been tempted to set x minus 3 and x minus 1 equal to 0, but you couldn't do that because of the minus 8. It wasn't technically factored. If it's factored, everything's being multiplied, and that negative 8 was not being multiplied by the rest of it. It was being subtracted. So you had to get it into standard form, refactor it, and then you can get your solutions. If this right here was not factorable, like you couldn't find anything that multiplied to c and added to b, then you would have had to have done the quadratic formula because it did have a b term. Okay, I'm going to have you guys hit pause. From here, you're going to take your quiz. Good luck. Hopefully you guys practiced all your strategies yesterday on the type 3 and did some good SAT practice. And then after the quiz, you guys are going to work on a handout which leads into tomorrow's lesson, and I will post the answers to that handout after. So pause, take your quiz, and then you can come back and listen to the explanation on that. I'm going to keep going now. All right, so after your quiz, you were asked to read these different scenarios and come up with possible equations. So there's more than one correct answer. So for number 1, I'm giving you the zeros and telling you that it opens down. So that relationship between 0 and factors are important. If negative 4 was a 0, that means x plus 4 is a factor. If 6 is a 0, then x minus 6 is a factor. What's missing is you need this parabola to open downward, so you need a negative a value. So I'm going to throw a y equals out front, and you can make up any a value you want as long as it's negative. So that's what you're doing here. You're trying to come up with possible equations based on the criteria given. For number 2, I'm giving you the vertex. So that's an h and a k. I'm not going to do intercept form. If I'm giving you a vertex, you should be doing vertex form. And it's opening up, so I need a positive a value. So it's going to be 2, and then in parentheses, x minus 0 squared plus 3. You can leave it like that for right now, but technically x minus 0 is just x. So you could rewrite that as 2x squared plus 3. And again, you can make up your a value as long as it's positive. Number 3, I'm giving you the vertex again. So you should be using vertex form. And it's opening down. So the a value needs to be, ding, 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 negative. And then it'll be x minus h, but when you minus negative 1, it's going to become plus 1 squared, and then plus your k value. So that's a possible answer for number 3. If we keep going here and discuss the other ones, last 2, so number 4, I'm giving you the zeros again. Whoops, that should have been underlined underneath. but my calibration's still off. So zeros are the x-intercepts, so you should be using intercept form. It's opening up, so I need a positive a value. First zero is 0, so that would just be x minus nothing. And the second 0 is 2, so it would be x minus 2. And you could simplify this to y equals 3x times x minus 2, because x minus 0 is just x. And the last question that you guys were asked to look at after your quiz, George and Pat were each asked to write a quadratic with a vertex of 4, 8. We're going to look at their work and describe any similarities and differences between their equations and determine who is correct. So what's some similarities and differences? Here I'd have you guys pause, do a discussion, come up with a list, and then we'll discuss. I'm going to just list them off because you guys aren't here to actually talk to me. So one similarity, they both did vertex form because they were given the vertex. Some differences, they made up different a values. It did not tell them anything about the a value and which way the graph had to open, so you could make up any a value you wanted. It could be a fraction, it could be a decimal, it could have been an integer, it could be positive, it could be negative. So because there wasn't any additional information given about what a had to be, they're both correct. All right, they both wrote a quadratic equation that had a vertex of 4, 8. And that's all there is to it. So tomorrow, the last section is all about writing equations. Unlike this, though, this was write any possible. Like we could have made up our own a. Tomorrow, we're going to be finding specific a's. So we're going to be given additional information, and we have to find a very specific a value, not just make up our own. And that's it for today.